Had different perspectives of seeing the challenge we have, especially here in Europe, because what we heard is that well, in Europe we are very experienced, we have a long history also, and so we're used to do things like we do. And now we heard also that if we want to change something, maybe it's not so easy if there's not the training of 400 landings or 700 times to see that there's a problem if there are socks lying everywhere. So I'm really curious how we can think also in the companies and in organizations when we have to face these challenges. So Carolina.
So here is my challenge now to answer your questions. So the first new is a bad news, to follow Nancy's approach, is you got the point that we are not going to have lunch at 12. So you will have to wait a little bit. So I will try to manage my half hour. I count on you, Remy, for that. The second point, introductory point I wanted to say is to say a big thank you. To say a big thank you first, because the fact that we organize such events, to a certain extent, to a big extent, forces me to go beyond my own beliefs, because it forces me to prepare a presentation that is supposed to be, let's say, interesting and updated in terms of research and knowledge. And it gives me the opportunity to listen to my colleagues. When I was listening to Nancy, to Raphael, to Georges, everything is interrelated, and I'm going to be able to make some links with what they said, and I'm learning. So thanks to all of you, because you are here, and that allows us to make these events because you come. I'm learning, and then I see that this is all really worth to do what? Worth today to think about what does it mean to have an innovative mindset. Georges talked about mindset, and I think there is an issue here. Most of the literature says about innovation, okay, that it is a kind of a creative idea, a new idea that is successful on the market. Okay, it's not only the idea; it's also the fact that it's somehow bankable on the market. But when I was thinking beyond and reading other new literature, much more, let's say, based on the critical management studies, it really comes that innovation is a specific mindset, okay? It is a specific mindset, and that's a little bit what I've been trying to understand. What mindset is that? And I think it's the mindset companies in the emerging world are having more and more, but not only them. I still think that the examples I will be using are American examples yet, because this mindset is still existing, but it's going to be faster. There will be a matter of tempo with the emerging countries. Why do we question this now? Because globally speaking, a company works like this in terms of a life cycle of a company. You first have the idea here, what we call dreaming the dream. Most of the ideas stand here in the idea, you know. It's like the baby that will never born. But then those who work, they start a second phase, a second step, by which they become the child. To a certain extent is when they start raising money and creating the organization, getting little by little to be known with the product and launching the pilot on the market and so on. Then we have a third step by which we become more adolescent. Like a company, when it's adolescent, it means that it starts to put some processes inside to be better organized. It starts to recruit people, to grow. Very quickly, you can go to what we call the fourth stage, making it, which means that either your brand and or your product or your service becomes recognized on the market, okay? Then we arrive to another phase that is what we call becoming an institution. Here we start to become institutionalized, and here a risk starts to arise, is the risk of focusing more on the internal functioning of the organization and forgetting a little bit about the market and the driving forces of the market, because we become little by little a little bit complacent. We start hiring people that are similar to us. We do not hire people that are different to us. And then closing in means we are not yet dead, but we are about to. Because we do not have any differentiator anymore. There is zero innovation. And then let's remember the Kodak case. The Kodak case is exactly this one. They were up there, leaders in the market, okay, and they do not exist anymore today. And so the idea is, why are we talking about innovation in Europe in this way, as considering that it's difficult in Europe? It's difficult in Europe because it's such an effort compared to the situation that some companies, I see the risk that they will be arrived to dying, okay? Or that we will call somehow public money or the government to help or just to make them survive, which is, well, on the long term, is not the best way to manage business. And this is why when we become an institution, we need what we call the path of renewal. It's how can we, now we are big, now we are well known, now we are getting little by little asleep. How can we wake up? How can we wake up and react in such a way that we get back the energy of dreaming the dream, the energy of the beginning, that it was an innovation energy? And this is why I wanted to use this model to show that in Europe particularly, we are very much so in becoming an institution in many companies, big and small too. And therefore, I've been studying a little bit what it means to innovate. It has always been to me a very confusing word. Innovate sounds like, okay, if I do something different, I'm innovating, but what does it really mean? We all know more or less product and service innovations, and by the way, I will be bringing some examples about it. But innovation is also about industrial and technological processes. Raphael was mentioning the Toyota system, okay, in production, for instance. You have one which is here, and you also have managerial innovations, like the use of the lean management applied to innovation and change management, for instance. But whatever the type of innovation, behind that, there is a specific mindset, and this mindset is similar. I'm going to use the example of disruptive innovation, disruptive changes, so that I show you better what research has shown as being behavior that explain an innovative mindset. And that's what we call the discovery behaviors. And there are 4 discovery behaviors. And I'm going to use 4 examples that illustrate them. For instance, the first discovery behaviors is asking questions. Asking questions much more than finding answers. It's a specific mindset. Let's take the example of PayPal. The co-founders of PayPal, the 2 of them, were very often questioning, how could we beam money to people? How could we make that money could be sent by email? Now everything is happening by email. How could we make things much faster and still secure? Okay, and that's how PayPal was created. So really a questioning about how could we do something new. We then have a second behavior in innovation, which is observing. Observing, we have, for instance, the founder and CEO of Starbucks, and he was in Italy observing espresso bars. And not only observing the bar itself, but the culture around the bar, the romantic Italian culture, the way waiters serve you the espresso, the way Italians drink it, okay, and all what's around this kind of ritual. And he said to himself, I want to adapt and to develop this in the US. And that's how the concept of Starbucks was created. We have a third type of innovation mindset behavior, which is what we call networking. Networking, and we have an example with the BlackBerry CEO that was on a cocktail evening, okay? And he was listening to someone talking about the Coke distribution machine, and how the Coke distribution machine was wirelessly contacting the supplier and saying, giving the information, I'm empty, I need to be refilled. And he wondered, wouldn't it be nice to have a device, okay, an interactive device, by which wirelessly I can send information to those who I want to communicate through information? And that's how the BlackBerry, the seed of the BlackBerry started. Networking was the trigger to that. And the last one is experimenting. Experimenting is, we have the example of Dell, by which Michael Dell loved to dismantle, okay, and to rebuild things. And by doing so, it came to his mind like, wow, I could imagine to deliver personal computers and in a way that it will be 30% less than IBM. And that's how the Dell direct model emerged. Okay, all this can be summarized in what we call associational thinking. When it comes to innovation, we are talking about associational thinking. It's a very systemic thinking, okay? It's making links and managing complexity in such a way that complexity is something positive because I can relate what I see on my left to what I could do on my right. It's connecting things to get something new. And the example of Apple, I know you hear it very often, but I like this one because it's when you hear that Steve Jobs, he was very curious. Georges talked about this. That is really a requirement. And he was learning calligraphy and discovering very nice typography. And he associated this learning and this experience to the computer and how he could apply that with a computer. And that's how the Macintosh, okay, and desktop publishing in general was developed, okay? But this sounds kind of easy, but it's not at all. It's not at all. This is like the story that we explain afterwards, once it happened. Now what counts is, okay, how can we apply it in such a way that Europe can become a little bit more competitive? And in fact, we have to understand how a company is supposed to work. A company is the management of attention between the organizational defensive routines, okay, and the corporate vision, the corporate project. So you can understand that when we do not have a corporate vision and a corporate project, we do really have a problem. But let's suppose that managers and leaders try to have a vision. And then, what makes the difference between an innovative mindset organization and what we call lazy organizations? And that's how I can relate it to organizational laziness. The innovation mindset organization is when the forces, okay, the drivers of the vision are stronger than the barriers that are involved in organizational defensive routines, that I'm going to show you some examples right away. Whereas a lazy organization is when the organizational defensive routines, the reason why we shouldn't change, okay, are bigger or stronger than the forces and the strengths of having a strong company vision. If I recall what Georg said, we could imagine that here in this case, we see the possibility of change from a chicken perspective. It means that I will gain more than I lose. I'm not dead because I give some eggs. Here we have the pig perspective. If I give some of my ham, first of all, it means that they have to kill me. So I have everything to lose if I change, okay? And what does it mean, an organizational defensive routine? The organizational defensive routines is what is usually not present or very little present in innovative mindset organizations. It's typically, can we do that? When you bring a new idea, can we really do that? So permission seekers, it's a very interesting symptom of the fact that the vision of the company is unclear. Is maybe not even present, but at least it's unclear. Because it means that we do not know whether our idea can serve that vision. So we really should, when we have this type of questions, it means that we are being defensive towards change, and by definition towards innovation. We can't do that. That's something we hear quite often. We can't do that for many reasons, because first of all, we never did. That's not the way we do things here. And then meaning, it's not said, it's implicit, but meaning that, why should we do it now? Okay? And here again, we have the idea that rationally we are able to explain why taking the risks is not a good idea. Maybe we had a punishment in the past because we took some risks, and then we start saying we can't do that here. We have to go through proper channels. In fact, innovative mindset companies involve employees that are able to cross the silo walls, to cross the hierarchical walls, and to involve the right people on a project to make fast decisions and revolutionary decisions. Okay? And of course, the company has to accept that if we want innovative mindset. When we have to go through the proper channels and respect some processes that might not be innovative oriented, then we cannot do so. That's good enough. That's good enough. When we have substantive results, a substantive success of a started change, very often what happens is that momentum slows. Okay, that's typically in change. It's very easy to start a change. Not always well done, but at least some energy is put into the starting of the change, and then people can go through it. But it's sustaining the change over time, okay, that becomes much more difficult. And if we have some successes, most of the time, momentum slows down. And we just simply come back to our previous habits because we didn't yet completely change our mindset. And so because we stopped the efforts, as it was explained right before, we just come back to our former habits, and then all the benefit of the change is lost. And when you hear that's not my job, this means again that people are not oriented towards the goal of the company and the vision of the company. They are oriented towards just the present and the little territory. These are all syndromes or symptoms of a lazy organization. And I don't have the time to do it, but if I asked you whether you have these symptoms in your company, I think I would see many, many arms going up. And what does it mean then to set up an innovative mindset? It's really, let me use this image of the Greek temple that is brought by my colleague Pierre Casse very often in the different leadership courses. It means, if we look at the roof, what we want to get is this innovative mindset. To do what? To develop what we call the adaptability, which is at the same time to adapt to the environment, but to challenge it, to make it different. So it's not only change, it's change and innovate, okay? 4 ways to do so. The first one is to encourage questions. These are the 4 behaviors I just described before. Encourage questions, create a set of processes by which people are allowed to challenge the status quo in the team, in the organization. Second, create time to observe. Allow people and find processes for employees to observe what happens out there in other companies, at the customer level. Let me give you an example here of a managerial innovation. It's what we call the employee swap plan that Google and Procter & Gamble are doing since 2008, by which about 20 employees from both companies, they switch the workplace to discover how the other company is working. Okay, can you believe doing that here in France? We would be afraid. Oh, they would see what I do or what I don't. Sponsor networking activities. So it's allow people to go to conferences, allow people to go to community conferences by which I will have some people doing the same job than me in other companies, and so I can benchmark techniques. Okay, and also bring in people with a new insight, with a new view of what is happening in my company without being afraid of that. Run experiments. Be open to make pilots, okay, and don't put a culture of we don't do it because it could fail. To do so, what we need, and it's the base of the Greek temple, is to have a leadership culture. So this is easy to say, but what I mean by that, that's what we mean. You know, these are different words than those that were used before, but it's the same idea. It's openness to new ideas. Don't be afraid and don't say that might be too complicated. Acceptance of uncertainty. This one is really important when we are in a crisis situation or when we want to have only rights and no duties. We tend to be under control. We want to control things. And then uncertainty is not welcome. Learning culture. It's after a project, what did we do well, what did we do wrong, and how can we learn from this so that we apply a different way of doing things the next time. Establishing trust. Trust means that we are able to establish a vulnerability to each other. It's related to the interdependence between us. It means that we have to combat ego for that. I'll say a word later. Continuous training, and it's true that training relates to cognitive approach of things, but if it is continuous, there will be a culture of I'm open to accept that I don't know everything, and that I can find new ideas out there with my 4 innovative mindset behaviors. Interdependence, I said, room for goal-driven dissent. That is very important. Artificial harmony really prevents innovation to happen. Okay, what counts is to allow and to manage goal-driven dissent. I disagree with you. When I think about the way to reach the vision, my idea is that. And Nancy will confront my own idea, I will confront hers, and we are going to create a third new idea that is neither hers nor mine at the beginning. Room for debate and constructive conflict. Combating the ego, okay, when we have too much ego in a company, then it's about me, it's not about the company culture. I'm not able to trust and to be trusted. I'm not able to have constructive conflict. And combat the unspoken, and here I talk about some parts of Europe, France being one of them, we love the unspoken. Everything that is not said is most of the time the most important things to be said, but we don't like them being said. Okay. So what did we see here? We saw some experts in dancing. If we consider that at the end, the way they dance, the energy that they provide is an innovation as opposed to what we felt at the beginning of the show. Oops. What we have seen is many things. The first one is that they have first of all been competing to each other. But at a certain stage, they started to accept to observe each other, then to network and to experiment. We see these different behaviors in innovation. But there was something that allowed that, and it was when the musicians got together. So this is the point about the leadership style of the company allowing this to happen. Okay, and it was a little bit what Georges said before. It is the fact that people need to want to do it. They feel able to do it. They feel it is expected, even expected, and it is supported. Okay, so that's the part, let's say, of the leadership. And then, to finish, I would like to conclude with a cathedral parable that you all might know, but you will see the relation. You know that when a man, Peter Drucker explained that in his book of 54, a man came across the stone cutters and asked them what they were doing. The first replied, I am making a living. So here we have a typical situation of pure extrinsic motivation by which I work for my salary and that's it. We know that this makes no sense for an innovative culture to happen. We have the second that said, he was keeping on hammering while he said, I'm doing the best job of stone cutting in the entire county. So it's about me doing better than others. So an absence yet of interdependence and collaboration. It was a little bit our dancers at the beginning. I'm the best. And then in front you had the Irish, I'm the best. Okay. And the third one looked up with a visionary gleam in his eye and said, I am building a cathedral. Okay, and so the question is, what is my cathedral? What is my corporate project? Okay, what is my way to combat laziness and to face emerging countries, big companies? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Carolina. Well, I think after your speech that we are doing well. with our European Change Forum, because I have a vision, and you are part of this vision. So we are starting, and now it's the second edition, that we are doing these 4 things, I think. We are asking questions. We also are observing, so observing what other experts that we invited can provide us. The third is, what you said, it's the networking. Well, networking also is very important, so we do this in the breaks also, and afterwards in the workshops, so that we start to know each other, coming here with a high curiosity also. I think this is also something very important. I'm very curious for all the people here. And the fourth thing is experimenting. And so for me also this second edition is an experiment. It's a big experiment. So for me it's really this challenge to be innovative in Europe, to have a new mindset and to go further. So I hope that this is part of what we are doing here, what you presented, and I'm very happy that we are doing so.